Want to welcome everyone here today. We are our Republican conference. My colleagues are here to announce a package of bills and reforms that would impact our unemployment system and unemployment as generally here in the state of New York. I can't think of, when you think of the pandemic, outside of the public health component, outside of the nursing home debacle, on the other side of the economic side, I can't think of a bigger issue than the unemployment system and the abject failure at a moment when every New Yorker needed government to be there on a critical issue. We did not meet the challenge. There is no one that can tell you the New York State unemployment system met the challenge that it was faced with really throughout this pandemic. Even today, last week my office had 110 constituent cases that we closed out. 90 of them dealt with the Department of Labor. That was last week. So this is not just an old issue. This continues to be an issue. So the question would be, after thousands of folks were really forced on unemployment, I think that's a key part here. They went on unemployment because the state of New York, and regardless of how people feel about different restrictions or lockdowns, whether it was necessary or not, the reality is the state of New York mandated many businesses could not open. And that forced people ultimately to the unemployment system. And after they were forced on the unemployment system, when they were told they could not work, or their employer was told they could not work, they found out that they could not get help to be able to pay their rent or their mortgage or provide groceries for their families, with no idea of when they would be able to return to work. So here we are a year later, and the question would be, what have we done to make sure to learn from the last year and make it better? And I would posit we've done very little. As you will hear from my colleagues, because they are introducing legislation that actually would do things to improve specific areas where we fell short during the last year. Whether it's regarding fraud and the impact that has on the unemployment insurance fund, which directly impacts significant and real costs to our small business owners. Whether we're talking about the recent $10,200 exemption the federal government gave. So the first $10,200 that you collect at unemployment, we're not going to tax that. The state of New York did not follow suit, even though there's a piece of legislation, which my good friend Senator Tedisco will talk about, that would do just that. That would give those folks who need it the most a break on their taxes this year, based on the income they made last year. You're going to hear from a constituent of Senator Serino's, Kelly Hadley, about her experience. So don't just take my word or my colleague's word. Listen to Kelly's story. The bottom line is, it's not enough to tell the stories for us. It's not enough to just be empathetic. You have to learn, whether it's the nursing homes, whether it's anything in this pandemic or this current topic. We need, as a government and as government leaders, to identify and be honest about what failed and how we fix it going forward. Because shame on us if we don't do that. And we have an opportunity with this package of legislation to do just that. And so at this time, I want to call up a colleague of mine, a new senator, someone who's doing a fantastic job, someone who knows about the challenges of owning a business in good times and certainly during the pandemic, and that is Senator Peter Oberacker.
Thank you, Leader Rohrt. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome you all here today, and also put out a big kudo and a thank you to our local fire departments and firefighters. Today's International Firefighters Day. I'm a member, and I just would like to say thank you to all my brothers and sisters in red. So we are here over a year into the COVID pandemic. And it's great to see that we are getting healthier and starting to return to some sense of normalcy. Unfortunately, there are still thousands of New Yorkers struggling, and it's due to the state's failures over the past year. I still hear from constituents on a daily basis who have gone weeks and months without unemployment benefits due to an ineffective, failing state system. At the height of the pandemic, when tens of thousands were out of work, the disarray left families in the dark and struggling for answers. I've heard from despondent single mothers, sons, and daughters supporting their elderly parents, and the list goes on. They would spend hours and hours on the phone, only to be disconnected or left with no resolution of their case. The fact that it's continuing now is totally unacceptable. Additionally, many who never applied for unemployment assistance are now the victims of fraud. And trust me, no one is immune. A couple of weeks ago, I received notice that my name was used in an attempt to claim unemployment benefits. There's a joke there, legislators working, but this is really not a laughing matter. Individuals and families hanging on by a thread are not receiving the crucial help they need. Crooks are taking advantage of a shoddy, vulnerable system. Throughout the pandemic, New Yorkers have been hyper-reliant on technology to connect with critical services and benefits, and the state has simply let them down. That's why I've introduced legislation calling for a full forensic audit of our IT systems by an experienced outside firm. This will give us a detailed blueprint so we can make proactive improvements. We know there have been failures, but let's fix them. New York is home to Wall Street, the financial center of the world. We have new tech companies spread across upstate New York. It's embarrassing that our own state's IT infrastructure is subpar. We need to provide immediate assistance to those who are currently out of work, pleading for help. And we must reinforce an overall effectiveness and security of our unemployment system. So with that, I would like to bring up my esteemed colleague and Senator, George Borrello. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Thank you, Senator Oberrocker. Appreciate it. So we're glad to be here today, and I want to thank my colleagues for being out here today to talk about this, because it's an issue that's largely been ignored. Right now, our unemployment system is not only broken, it's broke. New York State has a $10 billion deficit in its unemployment insurance fund, and yet we can't get a straight answer as to how much fraud has actually occurred in our unemployment system. This is a copy of a letter that I sent to Commissioner Reardon back on April 19th, asking for a full accounting of the estimates of fraud. I've still yet to receive an answer. They'll tell us how much fraud they've prevented, but they're not going to tell us how much fraud they believe has occurred. And by the way, most other states have already done that. They have looked into this to determine exactly how much fraud has occurred in New York State, or in other states. New York has not. California, for example, estimates that it's lost about $11 billion to fraud, and they're investigating another $20 billion. And why is that important? Well, we can't fix a system if we do not have an actual realization of what caused the problem, what the root is, and what the real damage has been. So what's New York doing? Well, we're doing what we typically do. We're sweeping it under the rug. And we're seeing this, the typical non-transparency by this administration. So instead of actually finding out where the problem is and addressing it by taking the federal funds that have been coming to New York's coffers to fix the unemployment insurance deficit, we're going to saddle our small business owners with it. Every single one of us knows a business owner, myself included, that has received their bills for unemployment insurance, double, triple what they were. Now, we took a step as a Senate to freeze the experience rating. Well, that turned out to be a flaw because we did not also freeze the rate. And the rates went up a lot. So as our small businesses in particular struggle to reopen, struggle to hire, what are we doing? We're settling with more debt. That is just unconscionable, especially in this environment. So bury your head in the sand, tell everybody everything's fine, and then send the bill to New York's hardworking small business owners. It's ridiculous. As far as the fraud goes, I was also a victim of unemployment insurance fraud. New York State has attracted these criminals from around the world with their lax system, a system that really incubated fraud. And on top of that, now we're going to pretend it didn't happen. Let's have some transparency. I'm going to send this letter to the commissioner again, and we need to know where we stand so New York's hardworking business owners and the families that they support can get something done. Thank you. I'd like to call up my colleague, Senator Tedisco.
Thank you, Senator Borrello. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, I told Senator Steck, who's one of our great Senate fellow public servants, is I'm going to protest the size of this podium here because it was built for him, okay? But I did okay even at this side in one of the few sports that some of you have played. I want to, first of all, read something to you, very short. It's from our comptroller, the main bean counter, Comptroller DiNapoli. 2021 comes from his office. Tax revenues, $3 billion over projections, April 15th. It says tax collections for state fiscal year 2021 total $82.4 billion, $3 billion higher than the forecast by the State Division of Budget in the amended final executive budget plan. The money is there to help those who really don't see a tremendous amount of light at this end of their economic tunnel. The $10,200 that the federal government has realized that the words "it's always been done that way" are probably the worst words in the English lexicon. Yes, we've taxed unemployment benefits in this state, but not during a unique pandemic like the COVID pandemic. We've done a lot of things before this pandemic took place, but we're doing a lot of things now, federal, state, and local, to help people bridge across this, have a lifeline to get to a better economic position. We've done it with renters. We've done it with those who don't have to pay for local governments their water bills. We've done it for their utility bills. We've got stimulus money coming from the federal government to help. It makes no sense whatsoever to use those words that it's always been done that way. And I'll preface the director of the budget from Governor Cuomo's office, because that's what he said. That's the worst excuse I can think of for 4,600,000 individuals who don't know how they're going to put food on the table, pay their rent when they have to, pay their mortgage, pay their kids' tuition, pay their car payments, pay their medical bills. They're in dire need. Now, we as elected officials went through something we've experienced before, and we experience just about every day, but not to this level. We are ombudsmen. You know, I heard someone say, maybe it's a truth, if we spent half of our session maybe repealing legislation, we probably might not have changed our agenda, one more representative through the census. But every single day we're working on behalf of people during this pandemic, dealing with what's essential, what's not essential. What does this executive order mean? Why does that business 5 blocks down the street open up fully and I open up 25%, or I can't open up at all? The nursing home questions, the scandal there, questions about sports, you name it, we had them every single day. But not one of them rose to the occasion of the number of calls my office, my staff, and I really believe our senators and assemblymen and the governor's administration got on this disastrous unemployment process and program. Crashing every single day. People finally getting somebody on the line, and they would lose them and they would hang up. Our staff, myself, had to get their information, work through the bureaucracy, and then once we got them into the system, we had to figure out how to get the checks out of it to them. And then the checks would stop coming, and then we had to call them again to get the checks forthcoming again. And it's still happening. Now, you shouldn't have to call somebody from the media, but we thank those who intervened on our constituents. You shouldn't really have to call your senator, but that's a part of our job, or your assembly person, to intervene, and we did that over and over and over again. The fact of the matter is, these 4.6 million individuals are not the wealthy. They're middle class, many of them. They're lower level in terms of revenue and income. And when my colleagues on the other side of the aisle say, we're going to tax the rich, $5 billion. And you know what we're going to do with that money that we tax the rich? We're going to give them for programs for those people who are lesser in terms of income. Well, I want to tell them right now, sitting in that building, you're not living up to what your statements are. Your actions are belying your words. These are not the rich. They're the downtrodden. And they don't see any light at the end of the tunnel for many of them who, even when we open up our economy fully, and hopefully we're getting there now, they have no job to go to because the bookstore, the pharmacy, the restaurant they work for went belly up. It doesn't exist anymore. They lost their business. So many of them don't actually have a job to go back to when the economy fully opens up. Now, for my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I'll say to them, they're the only ones that can bring this bill to the floor to coincide $10,200 break for the most downtrodden of our population who don't know what their future is right now. They could bring it to the floor today, tonight, tomorrow, but they've got 2 weeks to do it. You may know on March 31st, I brought the Felder bill to the floor as an amendment in the New York State Senate. At that time, we had 14 sponsors from our side of the aisle, and there were 2 sponsors who were Democrats on the Felder bill to provide that $10,200 break for those who were jobless in New York State. The vote went 43 no to every one of our colleagues who voted yes. All 20 of our colleagues yes. All 43 of their colleagues voted no. They said it was procedural. All I know is if it passed, it would have gone over to the Assembly. If it passed the Senate, it would have gone to the governor's desk, and we would have provided that assistance I think they desperately need and want, because we're getting a lot of contacts from them. Well, since then, it's only gotten worse, because their argument for not doing that has not held up. And there are 2 main arguments. We don't have the money to do it. Here's the comptroller's report. $3 billion above and beyond what we use to balance the present budget. The money is there. The comptroller says it's there. $3 billion. That's not a factor. Then they said, well, the federal government said, we gave you stimulus money, and because we gave you stimulus money, you can't give any tax breaks because we gave you that. April 7th, they reneged on that. They made an amendment. Oh, wait a second. You can do exactly what we did to help those who are most in need of assistance. You can give that $10,200 tax break to those who are jobless on unemployment. So those walls don't exist for us to do this. But then there's something else that happened, which I think is very cynical and very hypocritical. Remember I said there were 2 sponsors on that bill when I brought it to the floor? Democrats? Well, here's the bill right here. 19 Democrats have put their name on this bill. Now, what kind of logic is it for individuals who control the bill that's going to come to the floor, who basically know it's probably not going to come to the floor, to put their names on a bill? And Senator Gineris is on the bill. He's second in leadership right now. You've got 19 Democrats, and here are the sponsors right here, and our entire conference, which is 20 Democrats. I believe there's... Oh, that's right. 20 not want-to-be Democrats, okay? So there's 39 Democrats and Republicans on this bill. It only takes 32 to pass a bill. They have the votes. The comptroller says they have the money. The federal government says we've made that amendment so you can do it. Why would they put their name on a bill, especially a leader like Senator Gineris, who had them vote 43-20 on the floor against it, gave all those excuses why it can't have it, which are diminished right now, put their names on a bill. The only thing I can think of is CYB. Cover your butt. So when his constituents call him, like they're continuing to call, hey, I'm a sponsor of the bill, but I think they're smart enough to ask the second question. Yeah, but Senator Generis, 19 of your members on the bill, and there's 20 of the other side on the bill. That's 7 members more than you need to pass it, and you're the majority that can bring it to the floor. Why didn't you bring it to the floor? That's something that he has to answer, and I think all of their colleagues have to answer. The money's there, the opportunity's there, the need is there, and all of the opportunity to do that is there. And that's what we're asking him to do there. If you really believe in a philosophy, tax the rich to help those who are in need, they don't want to just tax the rich. They want to tax the middle class, and they want to tax those who are on unemployment. And that is shameful. So we're calling for them to do the right thing. Take their names off the bill if they're not going to bring it to the floor. Thank you. I want to introduce a giant here with our committee. A petite woman, but a giant, Senator Serino.
Thank you, Senator Tedesco. And I just want to say a huge thank you to the media that's here today. You know, at the beginning of the pandemic with all the unemployment issues, a lot of people didn't know that our offices could help them. And collectively, we've helped probably thousands of people, but there are still so many more people that need our help. I got a text message from somebody at 10:15 last night who's a victim of fraud. So thank you so much for getting this message out that they can call us. And I'm also here today because I know from my own life experience what it's like to be the single parent living paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like to wonder how I'm going to put food on the table, pay for gas, or school supplies for my son, or any of the other millions of necessities that pop up each and every single day. I know how stressful this can be at the best of times, but what I can't imagine is how our neighbors feel who are living these experiences today. Over a year after the pandemic started, 1 whole year, because of decisions that their own state government has made. When it comes to the problems plaguing the Department of Labor, it seems like every single thing that can go wrong in a state agency has gone wrong. Yet to this day, there's been no change, no accountability, and no real improved efficiency. We're right back to where we started, spinning our wheels, tracking growing lists of frustrated, desperate constituents. This is bureaucracy at its absolute worst. In addition to the issues my colleagues discussed, my office is also getting calls from constituents who've received letters from the Department of Labor stating that they were overpaid by the state, despite the fact that they haven't received a benefit in weeks. The process to request a waiver of that supposed overpayment is incredibly onerous, and constituents are back to spending hours and hours on the phone and internet to try to correct yet another New York State mistake. How does that even happen? New York is supposed to be one of the technology and homeland security capitals of the world, and there is absolutely no excuse for these ongoing problems. Thousands of New Yorkers remain out of work as a direct result of state actions, and it is the state's responsibility to ensure that fixing these glaring issues and getting New Yorkers back to work so they can move on from this mess are at the top of the priority list. And I just want to say that the liaison that we have at the Department of Labor has gone above and beyond to help us with the broken system that they're stuck working with. And one of the people that knows these problems better than most is a constituent of mine who I'd like to introduce you to you now, Kelly Hadley, who is one of almost 100 cases that my office is just recently working on that is open as of today. 100 cases. So Kelly, come on up to the podium. Yay, Kelly.
So I stand here before you as a fellow New Yorker, as a victim of fraud, and through this whole thing, my last payment I received was February 23rd. My account's been locked, my social security number dumped into a disabled account. And then I get phone call after phone call. I am graduating on May 19th. I am an exercise science major. I have been a certified personal trainer, and I'm also a bartender, both industries that have suffered the worst throughout this pandemic. I can't tell you how many times I've been interrupted during class as I'm fully remote. And also how many times I've been told, your funds will be released. We found your information. Your funds will be released. Lies after lies, false hope, broken promises. It's been 2 months, 2 weeks to date that I haven't seen anything. Nothing. And the only relief that I received was from Mercy College in Dobbs Ferry, that they gave an SFS fund to help the students that are suffering like me. I implore that the Department of Labor fix this immediately, and I implore the governor to help us. Thank you.
Nice job.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And do you have any questions? I'm sorry.
Kelly Hadley.
Okay, that's okay. All right. Any questions? Last call? All right. Thank you all very much. I'm sorry. Sheldon Silver being let out of prison. Anybody have a comment on that? So, okay.
yeah.
All right. Sure. Go ahead.
Well, I just say it's back to quarantine.
What do you think about him being released? I mean, he was under extended powers from the federal government due to coronavirus, and they were worried about spreading prison. But obviously, he battled it out quite a bit with him in the assembly, and he was just put behind bars last August, and now he'll be serving the rest of his term ostensibly in the privacy of his home. So, what do you think about that? Do you think that that's fair? Do you think that's a good reason to let somebody, especially Sheldon Silver, out on those terms?
Well, I think we have to have compassion for everybody. I know he had some wrongdoings and some misdeeds, very serious. I mean, many of us thought he should have been impeached, not for the deeds he's done, but for the way he destroyed the economy, for his basic agenda we felt was terrible for the economy and the best interest of New York State. But I think if someone is seriously sick and they're impacted like that, there's an extension into their families. And I think in that case, it wasn't the worst thing in the world to do. I know my constituents like to see justice done, and I think justice has been proven. And when there's an opportunity to show some compassion for somebody who may be in a very difficult strait health-wise, could have been and probably was the right thing to do.
So you're okay with him being out?
I'm okay if what they say about his health is the condition he is in. Yeah. He's not a part of our legislature. He's not going to be doing anything legislatively. And if he's very sick, I don't think he's a violation to harm someone. Most of all, we want to protect our constituents. We also want to protect them financially and their quality of life. So he can't be impacting that, and I don't think he'll be impacting them in a violent way. And again, if he's seriously ill, he should probably be with his family.